Okay, let's just run through this. 49ers make their first offseason deletion from the roster. Deebo Samuel gets traded to the Washington Commanders for only a fifth-round draft pick. This guy is a talent. This guy's had injuries. This guy's had attitude issues. This guy is no longer a 49er. End of the day, I just think Kyle Shanahan was tired of the act. He goes to Washington, which for a fifth-round pick, I think that's a great upgrade because that gives Jaden Daniels somebody to put on the other side of Terry McLaurin. I think this is a pretty good acquisition for a fifth-round pick, and they got the cap space to take on the final year of his contract. His cap number is pretty significant at $25 million, but San Francisco was just tired of the act. Got to keep him healthy, multi-dimension guy. I think that's a good upgrade for Washington. New York Giants shut out on the Stafford trade conversation, meeting with Aaron Rodgers and his agent. That's item one. Meeting with Sam Darnold when he becomes a free agent effective this Friday. The question is, he wants $35 million per season, which is the real Sam Darnold, the one that did really, really well the first 13 weeks of the season, or the one that hit bumps in the roads as the Vikings got ejected from postseason. That'll be interesting to see where that goes. Third one, Raider Nation. They're not part of the Matthew Stafford situation. Here's the report that I get at this hour. The Raiders initially, I was told, went to New England and said, we'd trade you 6 and 36, first and a third. You give us your fourth pick so we can get Shedeur Sanders. Now I hear the offer might be a sixth, and the other tight end on the other side, Michael Mayer, kid out of Notre Dame. I think he's a pretty good football player. 6 and Michael Mayer to get to Shedeur Sanders. I don't think New England wants they take Mayer, but they still want something else. So maybe it turns out to be the sixth pick and maybe a fifth-round pick and Mayer to make that jump up. Other thing, and I don't understand this because you only get so many visits at the Combine. The Raiders had long meetings with Jalen Milroe, the quarterback at Alabama, who I thought was going to be a Heisman candidate coming off back-to-back really good years at Bama under Nick Saban, who totally fell apart at the back end of last season when the Crimson Tide went down the drain with Kalen DeBoer. I'm not quite sure that guy is a quarterback of the future. They may see great athlete. Chip Kelly may see great athlete. But the fact that he played so poorly, interceptions, lousy passing percentage, fumbles, why would you do that? You're not going to draft him in the first or second round. But anyhow, that's what the Raiders did. Next one is Philadelphia. They are knocking at the door in Cleveland, and they're not going away. Cleveland has got salary cap problems like you wouldn't believe. Philadelphia has offered 2 number ones and one of their offensive linemen to the Cleveland Browns for Myles Garrett. And why would you not do that if you're Cleveland? You got a crisis at quarterback with Deshaun Watson. You get an additional number one. You're going to get cap relief when you move Garrett off your roster. Now, granted, you're losing a great, great football player. But they got to fix that. They got so many problems in Cleveland. And Philadelphia, they got an awful lot of currency they can use. So that'll be interesting there. And then the last one is the University of Texas. You know, we went through the 4 days of the Combine. Steve Sarkisian said he was overwhelmed with NFL people coming to talk to him privately about his kids. His kids tested off the charts at the Indianapolis Combine. And quarterback Quinn Ewers, who had been a starter for a year and a half, he threw 67 touchdown passes in a year and a half. He's really elevated himself. He might be a top of the second round quarterback. I don't think he's a first rounder, but they're asking about Ewers. They asked about Matthew Golden, who had the top 40 time of any of the sprint guys and played really well in the most important games of the season. Their running back, Jaden Blue, who only was a rotation guy, he had the top 40 time of all the running backs. And then one of their other wide receivers did very well too. So it's interesting. Suddenly, Isaiah Bond, Texas has got all the skill guys. And Sarkisian says, this is just absolutely amazing how many NFL people came to me to talk about the specifics of my players. And I didn't even mention their right tackle, who might be the first or second offensive lineman to go inside the top 10 in the draft. The University of Texas, just a power, and they just kind of took over the whole draft combine. So, John, Talk about the 49ers, talk about those with quarterback problems and what the hell the Browns are going to do.
The Browns, they're in trouble. They got to deal Myles Garrett. And imagine that. The Eagles with even better defensive linemen up there. I want to talk about the Raiders. And I like what I'm hearing on these trade talks about moving up. And, both of those deals sound good. I mean, because they've obviously got, what's the other guy, tight end the Raiders have? Is it Brock, or what was his name?
Brock Bowers.
Brock Bowers. Yeah. So, and the other kid, the Notre Dame kid, they're thinking of trading. He's really good too. So they had two good pillars. But imagine, if you will, that the Raiders are, for whatever reason, are unable to trade up into getting Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. Then might they trade down and then maybe pick up Milroe or Quinn Ewers in the second or third round and kind of make that a project? And then it sort of makes me wonder, what's the ranking order of the quarterbacks in the draft, and where does Dillon Gabriel fit in that mix?
Well, right now, obviously, Sanders, Cam Ward are 1-2. Jackson Dart, who had an unbelievable statistical season at Ole Miss, I think has pushed himself into the back part of the first round. But you'd have to scout him and make sure that this is the right guy. I think Ewers has now elevated himself. I was told his meetings were dazzling with the teams, and he worked out pretty well. Has pushed himself into the second round. After that, I've not heard a lot. Dillon Gabriel is undersized. Dillon Gabriel, I think, is more of a systems quarterback. Justin Herbert was a systems quarterback at Oregon. The only thing is, Dillon Gabriel might be just a shade over 5'10". That's a smaller size quarterback. Now, Russell Wilson has had a great career, and he was just right at the 5'11" barrier. Gabriel thinks. But I think Gabriel will probably be maybe a third or a fourth-round draft pick. They may see something unique in Milroe from Alabama. I don't see it because he faltered so badly. That doesn't mean you can't spend a third-round pick or a fourth-round pick as somebody down road, but they're still going to need a quarterback. By the way, they just got rid of Desmond Ridder yesterday. They told him he's not being offered a contract extension, and we're waiting for them to release Gardner Minshew. They might be the only team on the planet with zero quarterbacks on their roster by Friday. So the Raiders going to be pretty significant in terms of moves.
Isn't it interesting how you refer to Dillon Gabriel as a systems quarterback, and then you mentioned even Justin Herbert, and they're both Oregon guys, and then Bo Nix also systems quarterback who did hella good with Denver.
The difference is, Justin Herbert's 6'6". Dillon Gabriel's a shade over 5'10".
Well, yeah, but Dillon Gabriel can win games, and we've seen him. His trajectory has gone up. He's clearly not a number one pick, but I'm just curious to see where he lands because he's a guy I've followed.
Yeah, well, I would think Gabriel might be a third or fourth rounder at best. I'd take Gabriel over the athlete that Milroe is, but again, maybe they see things that they can develop and take the flaws out of Milroe's game. But he faltered so badly on the back end of the season down in Alabama. I mean, I was staggered at how poorly he played. But then again, that Bama lost a lot of players in the Nick Saban era, and DeBoer didn't have Nick Saban's roster.
Well, the Raiders have had good luck drafting quarterbacks from Alabama. How about Kenny the Stabler?
Yeah, but that was 2,000 years ago.
Yeah, that was.
Okay, all things NFL. You want to respond to some of them? Fans Forum chat box is open. Speaking of football, let's talk about this.